Because we know people who should be successful, but what? They're not successful. Why?
So that's his why buy. But what is he afraid of?
My personal style of education, but still entertain them, bring them along with stories, right?
If you're a real man, what do? I'm not the only one.
You can't wait to tell your spouse. You can't wait to tell your colleague. You can't wait to go to work and tell somebody. And you're like, oh my God, I can't wait. So what happened?
If you haven't seen my TV show, you should get cable. That's what you need to do.
From doing a TV show to doing corporate events, I've been so lucky to connect with many passionate entrepreneurs worldwide.
What I've learned from a business perspective.
Because this is the formula for success, no matter who you talk to. Attitude will drive your behavior. Would you agree? And your behavior will drive your consequences every single time.
We got the concept. Okay, we got the concept. We got the equipment, right? We got the brand. You guys got that. And then again, we got the content that we create. That's the easy part. This is the big one, the big C, which is the commitment.
What should you do? That's right. All right. 10Xers, do not fail me. True test. Here it comes.
There's skill, and then there's will. Listen to what I'm saying. There is skill, and then there is will. And here's the interesting thing. I know a lot of people who have a lot of skill, but have no what? Will, right? You ever look at somebody who's successful, and you say, why them? Why not you? Yes, okay, that's me too.
You have more control, but your costs are also going to be what? Higher.
Now, here's where some of the magic is starting to kick in.
You can talk to any CEO in the B2B business, any CEO. You walk into his office and they only care about three things. People too. Yeah, he with the suit, put it up. There you go. I hope you can see this. I'll try to draw big. Let's pretend for a moment that I had 7 territories. You remember I wrote that out? Yes or no? Boom. Territory 2, territory 3, all the way to territory number what? 7. So now I've segmented my market.
So content is going to start being created by machines. And I'm telling you right now that those people, you guys, the content creators that connect with people are the ones that are going to win. Some people think, well, it won't work for my industry. Really? It'll work for any industry. Trust me. The majority of the time when we're looking to fix something, repair something, or learn something, where do we go? YouTube. We don't even want to read anymore. We go to YouTube. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong.
When you're doing your thing, beautiful things begin to happen. It's like the law of attraction kicks in. You know what I mean? It's almost like you're in line with the universe. Everything works. And when you do your thing, everybody gets an automatic MBA, which stands for what? Mega Bank Account Money. Are you with me? So we don't want to do a thing. We want to do a what? Beautiful.
All right, put it all together for Victor Antonio. Here we go.
All right, there we go. I'm not here to mess around. You ready to learn, yes or no?
That's how it works in today's market. Whether it's B2B or B2C, you see the similar pattern. So how do you just, in other words, say you gotta start doing these things, pushing them, but also encouraging them. Oh, look at this. This is where it gets, dude, this is like so interactive with audiences, Matt. Can you imagine this with your customers? Check this out. Now, what does all this have to do with selling? It has everything to do with selling.
All right, welcome to another Sales After Dark, where money never sleeps. Today I got a good one. So here's how it works. If you're watching this on the replay, fast forward 5 minutes while I say hi to my folks here, and then I'll get into some content, and then we'll do some Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up. So anyway, let's see who's on the board today. Oh, there he is, my man. Perfect timing. Hello from Vegas. How social selling works with Daniel Disney, Sales Influencer Podcast episode. It's really number 10, so we had a little issue there. Another great episode, great tips on how to better utilize LinkedIn. Again, if you're not subscribing to the Sales Influence Podcast, I'm telling you, some of these interviews are just fantastic. Some of the stuff I'm getting from frontline salespeople, like not trainers, not gurus, but I mean actual people who are actually doing some real work on the front lines, is just fascinating. And Daniel Disney is an amazing young man. And so that was a great interview. And guess what we're doing tonight, Brian? We're talking about your topic. I got your email. I promise you I look at it. I did. I like the topic. That's what we're doing tonight, man. That's what we're doing tonight. Anyway, Relentless there says, Victor, you're the man. Right back at you, man. Thank you very much. Cheryl, what's happening? Thank you for joining us. And there she is. Makes the West Coast. Mia Knox in the house. Always glad you're here. Always glad you're here. Juga. Who we need to learn from? People who are what? Killing it. I love it, man. You caught that. Good man. Good man. Thank you, man. Relentless says, wow, this is next level. The audio engineer on this is sick. I think so, man. You know, Chris Stone is just, if you look at my podcast, the video stuff, and the interviews, Chris Stone is doing all that. He did the intro, the demo, man. I love his work, man. Love working with him, man. I gotta thank Doug Lehman for connecting me with Chris Stone, man. Looking forward to tonight's topic. Thank you for taking my request. Hey, man, you've been with me since the beginning when we started this journey on 100. By the way, so when I first started this, I said I'm gonna do 100 episodes. I was committed to 100 episodes. Today, I believe we're episode is at 84. I think it's 84. So, man. I'm not going to say time flies because it's been a while, man. I think we started May 4th, Brian, and you've been there since the beginning, man, and I appreciate you for that. Tabish Pawaskar, glad I'm online for this topic. I'm selling to contractors, so anticipating some juicy content, man. Well, I'll do my best to meet your expectation. And then Ahmed Noor, what's happening? Glad to be here. I'm glad you are here. CF in the house. What's new with you on this awesome Thursday in the Atlanta area? It's getting a little chilly. My neighbor's tree finally got cut off his roof. No damage. This huge tree fell on his house, but the branches leveraged in such a way that it didn't damage the house that much. So, good for him. Pete Primo's in the house. Pete, man, thank you for joining me as always, man. Appreciate you always be here. TJ, good day, Master B. I still owe you. Hey, man, take your time, man. Whenever you're going to send me that video, I love to have it. Internet problems, I get it, man. Moises Volsey, did I get that right? Hola, Victor. Right back at you, man, Moises. Moise, is it Moise? Moise. Usually there's an S, like for Spanish people, there's like an S, right? Piyush Mishra. Victor, I love you. Good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Dude, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. Thank you very much, man. Ben, what's happening? You're a friend from Puffer. Puffer's a great company, man. We did a webinar for Puffer. I thought it was a great webinar. I enjoyed it, Ben. So I hope you did also. Hope the team did as well, man. Thank you, man. Holy cow. I caught it live. Blip News, right? Thank you for all your help, Victor. You have helped me achieve a 6-figure salary. Dude, by the way, 6-figure. You get the applause for that, man. I know TJ closed $1 million deal, man. By the way, TJ, that one's for you, man. So congratulations on the deal, man. Let me see. Hey, Pete, good evening, guy. You can say Moses. Thank you, man. Thank you. All right, so let's talk about selling to contractors. So my man, Brian Gator Morrell, asked, he sent me by the way, you're so polite the way you asked. By the way, Victor, would you consider, I thought that was really cool. Something like that. It was very polite. So, selling to contractors and you sell electrical services. I've worked with electrical contractors in the past or different types of service providers who sell to contractors. So let's go through it. I mean, there's so many ways you can slice and dice this one, Brian. But I think, everybody listening in or watching this will probably get some benefit out of it. So let's step back so everybody catches up to what we're talking about. So, this is Brian. That's you, Brian. Some glasses there, right? And you're trying to sell to a contractor, right? And a contractor, the big C, is probably trying to work on some major project out here. And whatever the contractor is, maybe they're working with, I'll guess it could be real estate, it could be commercial, it could be residential, whatever it may be. And typically, these companies right here come to the contractor, and what they want is a full bundle, right? A to Z. Plumbing, the electrical, this, that, everything, right? Packaged up. So they provide the package, right? And that's the pricing proposal that they give to their end customer. So here you are, you're selling your electrical services, and you're trying to be part of that package. I think, tell me is that about right? Give me something on that, Brian, make sure I'm on the right page. And so basically that's what's happening, right? So in this situation, we're trying to influence this person right here, the contractor. Now let's take a step back. Let's go back to some of the basics, because we always got to go back to the basics, right? We know, because you guys have been watching me for a while, Brian says correct. You know that we typically win, remember this? You typically win 40% of your deals on average, cross-sectional study, and you'll lose 60% of your deals, right? Basic stuff, we have covered that already. And 60% goes, and we figure out 20% of that business goes to your competitor, but 40% of that actually goes to no decision, right? No decision, right? And if you remember what I said, when they looked at that 40%, 10% didn't make a decision because of price. So that leaves you with a whopping 30% who made no decision. What is known as status quo bias. They rather not make a decision than make a decision and be wrong. So your real competitor is not your competitor. Your real competitor is not your competitor. That's only 20%. We love to get that business. But a bigger piece of the pie lies right there in the 30, maybe 40% if you got the right pricing. So this is the dilemma, right? Brian, you're thinking, okay, how do I get the contractor to want to change? I used to have to sell through channels. And I had channels, we called them, we didn't call them contractors. For us, they were called systems integrator. So let's say we sold this piece of the solution, right? This piece of the solution, and then the system integrator would integrate a big system, I'm being very general here, a big system, and we would plug ours into that big system. So it was called a system integrator instead of a contractor. So I understand your pain, because sometimes, now let's go back to your situation here, the contractor, this person right here, already has a list of people that he works with. And you know what? He's been pretty successful working with these people. So he's thinking, I don't know if I want to work, redo somebody else. Here, you're trying to sell him something new, and he's saying, but you know what? I'm good with these. These are all good. I work with right here, I have the electrical contractor I currently use, and everything works out just fine, right? So this person had motivation for change is very what? It's very low. Motivation for change is very low. They're like, I don't want to change. Everything's going good right now. I've worked with this person for years. Everything's fine. I don't need your services. That's really the situation you're facing. And this is the status quo, right? The status quo bias, basically meaning he doesn't want to change. So how do we position our services to make this person at least pay attention, okay? So I'm going to start out like this, why, and I'm going to zoom in for you, Brian, and everybody else listening in. How would I approach it? Here's how I approached it. What I did is I tiered my contractors. By tiering my contractors, you guys know what I mean if you've been around long enough with me. What I would do is create tier 1, tier 2, and then maybe tier 3 if there is. Now, a tier 1 contractor is the best contractor I got. Now, so I would ask you, Brian, if you and I were sitting down together, I would ask you, say, okay, Brian, what are the big contractors we're going after, right? And you would give me a list 1 through 5, 6 through 10, okay? You give me 10 people, 10 companies, and that would be tier 1, right? So we could have 10 companies, 10 contractors in tier 1. We can do 10 here, and I'm just being very simple, and 10 there, right? This would be us. Then I would ask you, Brian, pretend that I'm interviewing you now, and we're going through your process. I said, Brian, tier 1 are very large contractors, very, very large contractors, and are they willing to do business with a small company? We would have that discussion, you and I. So I'm talking strategy right now before I get into tactic, right? Strategy. So you probably say, yeah, they probably won't want to change because they're very big contractors, right? But then I would ask you, all right, well, let's go mid-market here. Now, mid-market is probably where you'll find 10 contractors, maybe more, right? And you say, Victor, I've been more successful working with the mid-market, contractors. Now, I'll say mid-market, but you can use other qualifiers. For example, these could be national contractors, right? But you found that when you use local contractors in Nevada, I do better with local contractors. So let's say that these are national, right? And then these are local. By local, I mean statewide, right? And again, you can go down even to counties if you want with really small contractors. But let's say that you're right here, Brian. You say, you know what, Victor? When I'm working within the state, by the way, these nationals work not only in Nevada where you're located, they work throughout the rest of the United States. That's what I mean by a global or national contractor. This one right here, these contractors just work in Nevada and they work with that. So correct that motivation, risk versus reward, you got it. So then what I would do, I would look at this and say, you know what, this is the market I want to go after. I just want to work with contractors who are local and are not national companies. Why? In many cases, national companies don't have their headquarters there in Nevada where you're located. By the way, if you guys don't know, I'm talking about Brian. He's right here on the chat if you want to talk to him. But he's in Nevada, Las Vegas. So that's what I'm talking, the state of Nevada within the United States. And if you're a national contractor, sometimes national contractors that work in all 50 states will have their headquarters outside, let's say, of Nevada, right? Now, why is that a hindrance? Because many cases when you have a national contractor, the decisions are made at headquarters and they're not made locally. So that is one way of eliminating. By the way, I'm just giving you ideas of how you segment market. So I'm using national versus local to kind of give you an idea how to partition market, right? National versus, okay, but I'm part of a I am part of a national company, but you're part of a national company, right? But the contractors you may be focusing in on are still within Nevada. So you're national, that's great. Now, if you're telling me you're selling national, are you selling national, Brian? In other words, is your territory national? Give me that real quick. Is your territory national? Let's see how fast this takes to respond on the internet. Are you local or national? Give me that. Correct. Territory is Nevada. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. So you still would be here, right? So even though you have a national company, I get that, you're selling locally in Nevada. So what I would do is say, who's in Nevada, right? Now here's what you can do. If we now say that we're going after tier mark, only contractors that are based in Nevada, right? Then I could probably do one more layer of strategy before I get going. And that is, if I now know that I'm working out of the state of Nevada, right? I'm working out of the state of Nevada. What I can do again, Brian, maybe I would suggest to you, is I can tier my markets again. Now I'm only working with Nevada, so I can tier 1, tier 2, and then tier 3. Now, how would you use these tiers? In this case, you may want to look at the size of the contractors. Is it possible, for example, and there's so many ways you can slice and dice this. I'm just giving you strategy. But maybe you can look at the size in terms of revenue. So for example, if you say anybody that is basically, has revenue of more than, let's say, 50 million US, that's tier 1. If they're less than 50 but greater than 25, right, million, that's tier 2. And then anything less than 25 million, that could be tier 3. Just giving you strategy first, right? So let's say again that you say, you know what, Victor, when I play here, and then maybe also, Victor, when I play here, I always win. Here, I don't know, I just seem to lose those. Whatever your data tells you. So let's say that right now, this is the number 1 market, this is number 2 market, and this one's always tough, so we'll call that number 3. Got it. So now, let's go after that company right there. Now we go after this market. So then what you do is you list out, you know how to do this, Brian. By the way, Brian, I know that you know a lot of this already. I'm just covering the basics for everybody else to catch up on the stream. So now I'll write down the top 10 contractors that are in this range. Now I have a strategy because now I know who my zebra is. And if you remember, a zebra is your ideal client profile based on the book Selling to Zebras, right? So if you know who your zebra is, these are the 10 companies, this is their revenue, and maybe, again, you can slice and dice this even more, Brian. You can say, these companies here work a lot with commercial, which is what I want. I don't want residential houses. I want commercial buildings. So this market, this tier 2, is aimed at commercial businesses, commercial contractors who sell at least $25 million and maybe less than 50. Now I know who I'm talking to, right? If you understand that, now I know who I'm going after, so this is now clear. I've taken Nevada, I've shaped it down. I said, okay, I'm going after these 10. Now, let's go to the next phase. Now we got strategy down. We know what 10 companies we're going after. So now this gives you, and I'm giving you the shortcut here. So now, somewhere here, let's be very basic about this. You got a CRM, right? And in here, you're going to input company 1 all the way to company 10. We're going to start keeping track of every interaction we have with these companies, right? So we're going to get all the data we can on each of these companies, right? You know, and there you want 2 things. You want competitor data. Who else are they buying from? Who else are they sourcing the electrical services from, right? Who are they getting their services from? Who's the competitor, right, would be the big one. And I don't know what else you would use as a way of qualifying or what other data you would need. But I would think the competitors, how big is that competitor? How many, electricians do they have, that work for the company? And then what I would try to do is, let's say that I identified 3 competitors, Comp 1, Comp 2, and Comp 3. That these 3 are actually buying from, let's say, the first company. So I would grab the first company and say, who are you buying from, right? And they're buying from, let's say, 2, maybe 3 competitors. Probably like 2, I would assume, in the service business, right? So now our job, Brian, is to figure out how do we get in, right? Because maybe you don't have an in right now, and that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get your electrical services in to the actual proposal, the actual bid, okay? So let me see, all good, great review, strategy. Okay, great. And so now, let's talk about, we're going to approach these companies now. We got the 10 companies. They're in Nevada. We've tiered them into tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. We're looking at the $25 to $50 million range companies. Bam, grab those. Within those, I've highlighted 10, maybe 20 companies, but let's just say 10 companies. I grab the first company, I look at the data, and then I do some research and figure out who are they buying from? Do I have any contacts with the company? This is all the basic stuff I'm sure you already do. Who are the main decision makers? Who owns the company, right? Who basically makes decisions within the company? You got a CEO, but maybe you have, I don't know, an architect or somebody in that company who actually makes the actual decisions. So my first question to you would be is, if we pick one of those companies within the $25 to $50 million range, how much do you know about each company? Who are the decision makers? Who are the influencers? Who are they buying from? Those would be 3 things I would want to know, right? So you would have that. So again, let me just say it again. So in other words, who are the DMs? These would be the big guys. Who are the influencers, right? Right? And what did I say? Decision, influencers, and who are they buying from? Who are your competitors they're buying from? These are the 3 things I would want to know. This has to be part of my database, right? So now I got to figure out, how am I different, or how can I move them out, right? Let's step back a little bit. Let's step back, Brian. So now I know I'm going after a company. I know which company. I know who the decision makers are and the influencers, right? Decision maker, influencers. And I also know that they're buying from that company over there. They're buying the services from that company. My job is to try to get my services in. Now, let's look at this now from a tactical standpoint. Well, I should say, let's go psychological first and then go tactical. Psychologically, nobody wants to change. We've talked about this in the past, right? I said, if you look at the iceberg effect, right? The iceberg basically says 10% is when we talk about, here, let me just, sorry about that. That's what I wanted. 10% is up here, right? And this is where you talk about your features, your benefits, the advantages of your service, and how they can gain whatever, right? We've talked about that. This is where most people sell, salespeople. But I said 90% of the resistance you're going to get is like the iceberg. The real resistance is underwater. So let's go a step further. I haven't done this part yet at all with you guys, but let's go a step further. What is this resistance? What is that resistance underwater? Well, let's do this. Let me erase this, and I'm going to put it in 3 buckets for you, okay? So let me put this in 3 buckets. The first bucket I want to put is, let's call it the risk bucket, right? The second bucket is effort. Give me a chance here. And the third bucket would be cost. This is what this is resistance, right? If you look at the variables of resistance, this is resistance right here. So what I would do is I would ask myself, if I approach a company and I want them to buy my services, replace somebody else, or maybe apply mine, use it as a complementary to somebody else's. In other words, if they're buying services from somebody, you can say, I want to replace them. That could be one strategy, trying to get that competitor out, or you could be a second source. In other words, they don't have to use you as their main electrical services contractor. They can use you for smaller jobs. So there's two strategies there. One is you want to kick the competitor out, and the other one is you want to what? Complement, take the smaller jobs within the services, within that contractor's proposal, because you get a little bit of business and then a little bit, you start expanding that just a little more. Make sense? So that's how I would approach it. So I now think about the decision maker and the influencer, Brian. I go, okay, what's the risk on their side? If I work with you, what's the risk? What's the risk? Well, one, you're unknown, right? They don't know you. I know you've probably got all kinds of certifications, but they don't know you. You're the unknown. They don't know you, right? Now, so you're the unknown. What other risks are associated with that? If you do an installation, right, and it goes bad as an X, not good, what does that mean? What are the legal ramifications of that? What's the impact, right? Because this is what they're concerned about. They don't know you. And, so this also goes to what? Quality of your workmanship, right? Quality. So this is what they're concerned about. So I would have this in my presentation. As I'm talking to the client, I know that this is what they're worried about. Now let's go to effort. Let's say I get over the hump. You've convinced me. Victor, we've been around for 30 years. Here's all the big companies we work with. Here's all our certifications. And by the way, we indemnify you, basically making you guiltless. If anything goes wrong, we assume all responsibilities, right? You got me over that hump, right? You got me over the hump. Mentally, I don't feel that risk. But then I go, okay, Brian, I like you. Okay, great. You convinced me. You can do the job, and you've shown me the certification, and you're willing to take on the responsibility if anything goes wrong. And so now I'm over the risk mentally. But what about the effort? What does it cost for me to put you into the deal? What does it cost for me to put you into the deal? And by that I mean is what effort does the client have to go to, the contractor, to put you into the deal? To take somebody out and put you in, what does that require? So there might be some type of, by the way, I'm making this up, but you'll know what I'm talking about. There might be an approval process you have to go through. So the buyer's thinking, okay, if I switch out contractor services, then I have to basically, I got to go through this approval process, right? There's probably a lot of legal and a lot of paperwork that has to be done, right? Some approval paperwork. What else? I'm also like, by the way, going back to risk, my existing electrical service person already has a relationship. So, that's concerning also. So that might be a concern, right? In my head, So, and then you said effort equals intangible cost. It doesn't equal intangible cost. It equals actually tangible cost. It's like, what's it going to cost me? What do I have to do, right? What do I have to do to put you into the deal? So I got to approval, legal, paperwork. Maybe I got to figure out some type of way of working you into my schedules. So in other words, this person, the decision maker or the influencer has to do some work. There's some actual effort that they have to do, very tangible efforts that they have to do. They have to invest their time. They have to get paperwork. They have to get approval. And the customer's thinking, God, I got to do all these things. I don't want to do it, right? And then, so the last part, here's where you're right on the intangibles. What are the possible costs of working with you, taking out your incumbent, the existing contractor, and putting you in? What are the costs associated with that? And again, this one, I'm just going to put a question mark because we can guess on what the cost might be. In other words, they'll look at price, right? They'll look at price differential, right? The price delta. They'll look at the price delta. But what else? It might cost them. Maybe they have to work with you so you can understand their process. I'm making this up, by the way. Like, for example, they're bringing you into a deal, right? and it's a very special deal. So now they have to retrain you, or at least train you to how they do it, their standards. Maybe they have standard operating procedures that differ from what you're used to. So that's going to cost them time to do some training, right? They're going to cost them time to do the training. And by the way, the training piece falls under effort. The time piece falls under cost. So now, let's just pause here. We don't need to go any further. I think you get the idea. So now, this is what's underneath. You've convinced them above the waterline that you're a great contractor. Got it. But this is all the stuff that's in their head right now. And so my question is, how do you put together a presentation that, or a conversation that convinces them that the risk is not that high, right? How are you going to make it easy for them? I'm not saying effortless, just frictionless as much as you can. And then how can you assuage any concern that you're not going to add cost or time to the project by bringing you on board? You're actually going to save them time. And this is the presentation I would give. So that's one way that I would approach a sales strategy with them. So that's the big picture right there. So you got cost, makes sense, integrated with it. Yeah, it's all this stuff combined. So when we talk about selling services, this is what you're really looking at. Trying to figure out who you're selling to. So again, we talked about strategy, high-level strategy, right? The high-level strategy is you look at the market. And then instead of going national, you decide to go local, Nevada. Within Nevada, we said, okay, what are the type of contractors we're going after? Let's tier those up, right? Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. We use revenue, annual revenue, as a way of tiering the 3 customers. And then we said, you know what? I'm more successful with Tier 2, which was 25 to 50 million based on what we just discussed, right? So now that we have that tier, then we go find the influencers, the decision makers, and those are the people we talk to, right? And these are the people we connect with. And as part of your homework, now that you know that, now when you're talking to a decision maker or an influencer, right, you know what you're going to talk about. You're going to talk about everything that is right. What? Here, this is what you're talking about. That's what you're going to talk about when you talk to them. That's what they want to hear. They want you, remember, sales is all about 2 things, right? I say anxiety, right, and certainty. And your job is to reduce their anxiety and increase their certainty by speaking their language. And then again, we can get into strategies about how you would approach, let me go back the other way. How will you approach this in a presentation? This becomes now a conversation you can have. But I think if you sat down, put pen to paper, you could figure out pretty much what the resistance is going to be. And then ask yourself, in my presentation, am I really knocking down or lowering that resistance? And I'm telling you this, when people tell me about selling and it's difficult, it's usually because they don't understand the real resistance, right? They're still selling above the waterline. Features, benefits, and all that stuff, right? All the cool stuff, right? They're showing, look what it does. You can generate a report. You can do this. You can do this. Customer goes, I got it. I figured you could do that. But what the customer is not telling you, the unstated needs are all this stuff right here. These are the unstated concerns. So whether you're doing what Brian does as a contractor, you're selling a service, again, the questions are always underneath the waterline. In any service, the big question is, will it work? And maybe if you convince me that it does work, will it work for me? And in this case, working with you, will it be better? Will it be cheaper? And in the long run, will it be a great relationship? But we have to get over this hump first. So that's all I had on this subject. I'll take the comments right now. Let me see what you got. After I created this mess on my board here, let me know what you think of this one. Did I go too deep? Did I not go deep enough? I'll hit your last comment here, Brian. Let me see. I follow the baseline laid out in the book by Tony Alessandro, How to Be Your Own Sales Manager. Covers all the strategies and positioning on the secondary provider and move into the primary position. Like anything else in sales, you always position yourself second, because that could be your strategy. Always position yourself second, because number one usually falters, right? And if you're in an industry like you're in business right now, electrical services, I mean, the market in Nevada, I think, is booming right now, which means they're looking for second or third suppliers of a certain service, which means that's a great strategy to position yourself number 2. But keep in mind that these conversations about risk, again, effort and cost, you have to have those conversations. And by the way, when you have these conversations, be like direct. Like, Mr. Customer, look, the reason you probably don't want to actually contract another electrical service company is because right now, these are your concerns on the risk side. You don't say the word risk, but you know what I mean. And I also understand that you're probably thinking it's going to be a lot of effort to kind of integrate us into your process or your bidding proposal process. And also, I'm going to show you how we're not going to cost you that much more, and the costs are well in line with what everybody else is bidding. That's the conversation, the direct conversation you need to have with them. So let me know how that sounds, man. I just gave you a lot of stuff there. I'm into a doors manufacturing industry, and most of the time, the real resistance is someone I know does it for me. Someone I know, door manufacturing, someone I know does it for me. Help me with that one, diligent learning. What do you mean someone else does it for you? In other words, there's another door manufacturer? Because it doesn't matter. People have told me, said, look, I got somebody who does that already. I said, when somebody tells me I got somebody who does that already, in this case, I know someone who does that for me, or I'm happy with my current supplier. Again, I think, the ultimate turn phrase, right? And that is when somebody says, Victor, I'm happy with my current supplier. Victor, I have someone who already does that for me. To which I always ask, can I ask you a question? And they always said, what? And you say this: in business, isn't it always good to have options? And what do you think they always say? Diligent learning? They're going to say, yeah. I said, well, that's all I'm offering you here is an option. I understand that you're happy with your current supplier, your current service provider. I get that. But it's always good to have options. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about. I just want to be an option. And that's what Brian was saying. Position yourself number 2. And that can be just as powerful. So I get that. Sounds like I'm on the right track. Just need to keep pressing on. But by pressing on, remember, you got to have those hard conversations. I think too often we tiptoe around those, the risk, the effort and the time. But that's really what's holding them back. If you're good at what you do, which I believe you are, then are you having those direct, blunt conversations? In other words, you get one shot at them, Brian, to talk to them. Are you really having those conversations? Are you asking the right questions to figure out what's holding them back? So you have the right mindset, man. I think it's just a matter of just going in deep. Pete says, thank you, man, very much, man. Thank you. You helped me prepare for my next presentation. Great info. Thank you, Mia. Good luck with that. Market is picking back up. I bet it is. Blip News says, it's the same process to get a deal with home builders for home security. Yes, it is. Because they're working with a company already that they're used to working with, right? Remember, it's not that they don't want your product or service, it's that they formed a habit. And the habit, Blip News, is to work with that person. But how do you break that habit? You show them that you're there as an option. That's one way of doing it. If you just try to grab somebody, unless they're dissatisfied, the best thing to do is work with somebody. So I think that's another way of looking at it. So, and for some reason, I think I lost my connection on my thing. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Hold on one second, guys. I just lost my connection here. Hold on one second. I got to do something. This is kind of weird. Sorry about this. But I lost my connection to my computer.